Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Simple Watch Reviews, where I review simple watches in a straightforward way. Today, the Tissot reissue that no one talks about, the Tissot Sideral. All the big watch brands seem to have been plundering their back catalogues over the last few years to reissue as many old models as they can. I guess there's big money to be made at the moment in nostalgia, and also it's easier for brands to reissue an existing design than have to come up with a new one. Tissot clearly have had a massive hit on their hands over the last few years with their reissue of the PRX, which you can now get in what seems like a million different variations. But there's another Tissot reissue that came out a couple of years ago that I think is a much more interesting watch, but doesn't seem to be getting nearly as much attention as the PRX. That watch is the Tissot Sideral, which I think is a much more interesting watch than the PRX. You just don't see that many watches that look like this. It's a regatta timer, so a watch that is used for timing yacht races, although I have to confess I've never used mine to time a yacht race and I wouldn't even know how to go about it. But many of the big brands have released watches like this over the years, models that were specifically designed for this purpose. So Seiko have a reissue of their own, Omega have had regatta timers in the past, and so have many of the other big brands. Clearly though, a watch with a fairly niche function like that is going to have a fairly limited audience. What I think is great about the Sideral is it's just a really fun watch to wear, even if, like me, you don't actually go yachting. Unlike the PRX, there are only 3 different versions of the Sideral, so you can either get it with a yellow strap, a blue strap or a red strap, and each of those variants has a slightly different set of colours on the dial. I plump for the yellow. I just think it makes for a fantastic summer watch, and it's a really comfortable and enjoyable watch to wear. It's got this lovely tonneau shaped case which is 41mm in diameter, just over 41mm according to my calipers. On the Tissot website they suggest that the lug to lug of the watch is also 41mm. I make it 46. I don't know where they got 41 from. And it is a thick watch, so 14.5mm thick, but some of that thickness is taken up by the lovely domed sapphire crystal, which does have a bit of anti-reflectant as well. It's got a screw down crown and has 300 metres of water resistance. Clearly, if you're yachting, you don't intend to end up in the water, but I suppose there's a pretty good chance of that. And there's also a good chance of getting buffeted by waves, which means you need a watch with decent water resistance. The recessed lugs are 20mm wide, but to be honest with you, you're probably going to end up sticking with the supplied strap for this one. I can't really see it working on other styles of strap. And that strap is really nice. It's very, very flexible and it fastens in a slightly unusual way, a bit like some smartwatch straps, but once you've got it fastened on your wrist, it feels very, very solid. Definitely feels like it's not going to get swept off by the waves. And as I say, it's extremely comfortable. As you'd probably expect, the movement inside is the Swatch Group Powermatic 80, which you can see through the display caseback. But none of those specs tell you the 2 things that are most interesting about this watch. The first is the case material. So this is not solely a stainless steel watch. There is stainless steel in the case, but there is also forged carbon. And Tissot have woven into that forged carbon different colours depending on which of the colour options you go with to kind of highlight the colour of the strap and the dial. It's really, really nicely done. Forged carbon is super strong. I think it's a little bit lighter than stainless steel, and it definitely makes this watch look different from most of the other watches out there. And the other thing that makes the watch look different is that fantastic dial. The dial really is eye-catching and it is wonderfully retro in a very 70s sort of a way. It's one of those dials that makes me smile every time I look at it. I just feel slightly cooler than I actually am when I'm wearing this watch. The date complication is nicely balanced against the Tissot T on the other side of the dial, and the white hour and minute hands and red second hand are very, very legible. The bezel is very legible as well, even if I'm not entirely sure what you're supposed to use all the markings for. It has a fantastic feel to it as well. It's very, very solid and nicely clicky. And like the dial and hands, the bezel is loomed. As with everything on this watch, the loom is really fun. They've used a few different colours, and when you first get it under a UV light, it really, really pops. Unfortunately, the lume isn't particularly great after that. It does fade quite quickly. The other thing I'm less keen on with this watch is the depth of the rehaul. It just looks huge when you hold the watch at certain angles. I think partly that is the magnifying effect of the dome crystal, but the fact that the rehaul is very plain and stainless steel rather than carbon really does make it stand out. But aside from that, if you like the look, there's not much to fault about this watch. I think it looks great on my 6¼ inch wrist, and I think it will work well on bigger wrists too. It might not have the go anywhere, do anything simplicity of the PRX, but I think it's a much more interesting watch to look at and definitely a more fun watch to wear. It is though a bit more expensive than the PRX, so the retail here in the UK of these is £960, so it's getting up there. I'm guessing some of that cost comes from the carbon case. You can often get it on sale though, and these seem to go on eBay for a lot less than retail. That's where I picked mine up from. Do let me know what you think in the comments, and please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and also consider subscribing for more simple watch reviews.